Welcome to the Montgomery County Civic Federation, January 2026 meeting. If you don't know me already, my name is Cheryl Gannon, and I'm the current president of the Civic Federation. Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. As always, we will begin with our routine business. First up is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. It was published on page 2 of the January newsletter and posted on our website. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The agenda is adopted. Next order of business is to adopt the minutes of the December 8th general membership meeting published on pages 14 and 15 of the newsletter online. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
Motion to adopt.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The motion's adopted. Next is the treasurer's report. Jerry Garson is our treasurer. Please go ahead, Jerry.
We operate on a fiscal year, so this is from July 1, 2025 to today, January 12, 2026. We've received $1,501 in membership dues. We've had expenses of $1,384, giving us a net income for the period of $117. Our current bank balance is $5,825, and our expense this past month had been the post office box for $210. If there are any questions, please contact me later on.
Okay. So next up is announcements. We will host a special meeting of the Civic Federation on January 20th, which is a week from tonight, with Delegate Mark Corman to talk about the governor's housing proposals. It's possible that Michelle Rosenfeld, the land use attorney, will be able to join us as well. We'll know that toward the end of the week. If she doesn't join us on Monday, she said she would try to join us at our February 9th meeting. We're planning to have an in-person social next month with a charity project attached to it. We will announce the details of that soon. I think Paula said she has an announcement. Paula, go ahead.
Hi, sure. I'm Paula Bienenfeld. I'm past president of the Civic Fed. I wanted to let everybody know that our annual MCPS Budget Palooza is coming up. We're going to have it on February 16th in the evening with a Zoom. And as many of you know, if you've attended before, we go through chapter by chapter the MCPS operating budget. And we really love for you to be there. But as an addition, we're looking for people who would be willing to take a chapter or an appendix and go through it and report on that particular chapter. Thanks, Cheryl and Alan.
You're welcome. Thanks you, Paul. To you, Paula. You've been doing that for a lot of years. How many years have you been
Yes, I don't know. I was just thinking about it. So, actually, I should say this year it's us, the Parents Coalition of Montgomery County, and the Montgomery County Taxpayers League that are doing it. Thanks.
Right. Yeah. Are there any other announcements? Moving on to new and old business. We published a proposed amendment to the bylaws in the newsletter this month. It was endorsed by a majority of the executive committee. Alan will put the amendment up on the screen.
As soon as I get it together.
So there it is. We have a section of the bylaws that lists all of our annual awards. We are adding a new section, the Legacy of Leadership Award, to be given to a leader whose vision, integrity, and devotion to service have left an enduring mark on the county and its people through a career of service and steadfast commitment to the public good, justice, and inclusive government. The award may be given annually or periodically as deemed appropriate by the awards committee and the executive committee. If you were at last year's awards dinner, we awarded this for the first time. It was an award we created to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Civic Federation, and this amendment would now memorialize it into our bylaws. At this point, it's open. Well, actually, we need a motion to adopt the amendment.
I have a question before we get to that. about what is awarded? Is it money? Is it a plaque?
No, it's like a plaque.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Okay.
I'll move to adopt the amendment.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Is open for discussion now? Hearing none, is there, we can move to a vote. All those in favor of adoption, say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Is that a nay or an aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion is adopted. The amendment's adopted. Thank you. Next, we'll hear a brief update from our member Leanne Tobias, who's the chair. She's a member of the Civic Fed, but also the chair of the Citizens Coordinating Committee for Friendship Heights, and they have a sector plan underway there, and she's going to give us a brief overview of what's happening. Go ahead, Leanne. I think you're muted, Leanne. You're muted, yeah.
Mute. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. It just took me a second. The planning department is moving into its more active phase of considering the Friendship Heights sector plan. And thus far, much of the effort that's been put forth to date has been dedicated to determining community opinion on what should happen in Friendship Heights. The findings are largely that while a majority of those who have been participating in the process favor more housing, the idea seems to be that it be mid-rise housing or townhomes, but not high-rise housing. So it's unclear what will happen with that recommendation. The second portion of it is where will this development occur in Friendship Heights? And basically there are 3 sites under development, 2 of which are significant, which I'll highlight now. One is on the Geico campus of right near the metro station in Friendship Heights. And Geico is looking for a development partner to redevelop its land as residential, largely intended, much of it is intended to be high rises, some of it, mid rises, townhomes. Some of it is intended to be high rises. What has arisen in the community is with adjoining neighborhoods is there are some differences in support as to where the townhouses should be located versus the high-rise buildings. So that is something that will play out as this plan is considered. The other area that's supposed to be redeveloped, and so far the county has floated plans, but largely to me look high-rise, they're 100 feet or more, is the area that is now the parking lot behind Saks Fifth Avenue and some of the vacant land adjacent to the collection at Chevy Chase Retail. So that is, again, what will be discussed is the density of the improvements to be put in there. Question is how high for residential, how much retail on the ground floor, that kind of thing. And then there is a third site that is less significant to the degree that it's smaller. It's to the west of the bulk of Friendship Heights. It's a site on the west of the neighborhood that conceivably could be repurposed as well for residential. I personally would say it's sort of a tucked away site. It's not a bad place actually for high rise because it is adjacent to some additional high rise buildings. So that is what is being considered at the moment. Another component of planning that relates to this, but is being undertaken by the district, is a plan to potentially establish a bicycle lane along Western Avenue between Friendship Heights and Westmoreland Circle, which borders on Western Bethesda, and with possible extensions down Del Collier Parkway to Sibley Hospital to the west. That's a major commuter road. And then again on Western Avenue, east of Friendship Heights through at least Chevy Chase Circle, which is at Connecticut Avenue. And what is happening is all of Western Avenue is controlled by the District of Columbia, even the portions that border on Maryland. And the Advisory Neighborhood Commission in that area has, quite understandably, voted that the bicycle lane be put on the Maryland side entirely of Western Avenue, eliminating a commuter lane on the Maryland side, leaving no room for parking on the Maryland side, creating difficulties for folks who live on the Maryland side, getting in and out of their driveways or having deliveries received. Other concerns are the fact that Del Collier Parkway terminates in Sibley Hospital, so it's a major thoroughfare for ambulances and traffic to and from the hospital. The concern being that do you want to eliminate a vehicle lane that serves a hospital? So those are what is coming up in the Friendship Heights area. Additionally, what I would say about the bike lane plan is obviously substantial residential construction, and to a degree, congestion will occur as a result. So is this the time to be removing vehicle lanes? Similarly, just looking at the district and the contiguous area of Friendship Heights, the Maryland side, all of it is being upzoned. So not only are you seeing a tremendous increase in upzoning on the Maryland side, but you are also seeing a tremendous increase in upzoning on the DC side from Tenleytown through the Maryland line. So when you take the impact of all of this, we'll be seeing a tremendous amount of multifamily construction and presumably a certain amount of added congestion. So that is the Friendship Heights outlook that is emerging at this time. Any questions?
For Leanne? Okay, thank you, Leanne. Next, we're going to hear an update on the UBC plan, which is nearing its final step in the process. Is John Holden here?
I am. Hi there. Sorry that I don't have the video on.
That's okay.
But this will be somewhat brief, and I'm sure others can add. On December 9th, the County Council passed the University Boulevard Corridor Plan, or UBC plan. That was the day after, I think, the last Civic Fed meeting. And as this MCCF issued a statement that I think summarizes things really well. It was either that day or the very next. And it just said, the Montgomery County Civic Federation is deeply disappointed in the council's action to approve this plan, which will make housing more expensive, create greater traffic congestion, and do great damage to the environment. The council has ignored the warnings of the county's Racial Equity and Social Justice Review that points to the harm to lower income and communities of color in the area. The council has broken faith with residents of the affected communities with a plan that reneges on carefully negotiated parameters for corridor development under More Housing Now, which became effective just last month, which would have been November. We extend our thanks to council members Jawando, Katz, and Mink for their constructive engagement with residents and efforts to improve the flawed legislation. So that's the end of the MCCF statement. Those three council members are the ones who voted against adopting it. Among other things, there was reference to the racial equity and social justice analysis, which Montgomery Planning had given a rebuttal, and then the Office of Legislative Oversight, which developed and published the RESJ analysis, also had a response to planning's rebuttal, but it wasn't published until about a week before the final vote, which was a little bit disappointing, and they refuted or disagreed with much of planning's rebuttal. And then there are a number of one of the things that had changes that were likely to be most difficult is that were changes to the road that especially through the Four Corners intersection. They will be removing one, if this plan were to go forward, they'd be removing one lane in each direction, plus narrow the lanes that are there. So 3 lanes would go to 2 lanes, one of which is 11 feet and another is 10 feet in width. But of course, it's a state road. The other thing, this was December 9th. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that, and they took a straw vote on December 2nd. And on the Friday in between the two, Council President Natalie Fanning Gonzalez was a guest on WAMU's Politics Hour radio program on that Friday. And she was asked a question about the UBC plan and what it would do. And she claimed that the only current option, this is in December, the only current option for homeowners wanting to redevelop their properties on University Boulevard is to build a McMansion on their lot. And of course, this statement is just completely untrue and ignores the council action that they took this past summer on ZTA 25-02. So I point that out because I think unfortunately, it's not a new problem with respect to veracity of statements from the current council president. There is more to the process in terms of sector plans and the like, but I'm not as familiar or not the best person to speak on that. I think that if I saw that Harriet was on, and there are some others who might be able to say more about it. I hope that helps, Cheryl and others.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It was a sad result and a very frustrating process. I am reaching out to our members in that neighborhood, looking for ideas about how you would like the Civic Federation to handle the sector plan amendment, which is just the very last thing that has to happen. It implements the zoning changes. I'm sure they'll do it. They've gone this far voting for the plan. So I feel we need to bring something new to that discussion, like a balloon study, which is something Paula Bienenfeld told me about, or an architecture sort of rendering reality in a realistic way, what the houses around the tallest buildings, what the view will be from houses of those tallest buildings. Another thing that we might consider is sending postcards to the people who live in the houses right around some of those developments. If the members feel there are people who are not aware of what's happening, consistent with our mission to keep residents informed of what's going on in the county, we might consider sending postcards, letting them know about this last vote. So that's a discussion that we will have, and if you are a member in affected community, then stay in touch, and we should get together and have a conversation. Overall, and for Leanne as well, this is a big job at the Civic Federation. So when you are up against, things in your own area, particularly big things like master plans or corridor plans, we sort of rely on you. And the Citizens Coordinating Committee has an awful lot of expertise and is doing this for a long time and has, done a great job. But if there's things that you want us to do or letters that you want us to write, I don't like to drop the ball, so please make sure that that you let us know what your expectation is and how we can best represent you.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to do that. And I do have a question. I took one comment and one question on the UBC plan.
Yes.
The comment is, I would say feel free, in addition to adding the new material and focusing on the new material in your comments on the zoning resolution, I would just start out reiterating the problems with the plan as a whole. Because it's not going to change what the council does, but I think it's good for the Civic Federation to be on record with its objections to the plan, both at that stage as well as in the pre-zoning portion of it.
Okay.
Then I just had a question on the ResJ report. I don't know if you have the answer to this, John, but I vaguely recall two versions of the ResJ report. There was an initial one that said bluntly that there would be displacement as a result of this plan and that it would harm communities of color disproportionately. And then there was what I recall, and maybe I'm recalling this incorrectly, it was a more nuanced, less blunt reiteration of those points that said, well, it might harm moderate income communities and communities of color, but it didn't quite make the point as forcefully. I was wondering what you recall the final ResJ points to be, and I'm wondering if it's possible for MCCF to send members both the final SJ report and the final planning department report. I think it would be useful to know, as well as the final SJ language.
This is John.
Mm-hmm.
One version of it. And let me see if I can find. Yeah, I think that I don't have the language right in front of me.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'll look for that.
No worries at all.
Liz Joyce?
Yes, I wanted to add a little bit of information to what John just shared about an incorrect statement, shall we say, made by President Fanny Gonzalez at on the Kojo show. I attended the District 18 breakfast this morning, at which she spoke at length, and I asked her, and respectfully, I must say, given your tremendous commitment to your community, are you concerned? What I said is, what is the council doing to prevent gentrification and displacement along the University Boulevard corridor? And her answer was, there is not going to be any gentrification or displacement, and that it is an opportunity to build duplexes, for example. One lady called her and said, I'm so happy I can build a duplex for my daughter on my property. And I said, well, how about affordability? Well, I said, only 15 to 17% of these properties are required to be affordable, and she told me that that's not true. So this is what we're up against. They pass a law. It's down in black and white, and yet we're getting a serious disinformation about these. And my attitude is, if it's such a great idea, and you've done all your homework, why can't you honestly answer these questions? And the answer is these questions are still very pertinent, especially about the RESJ. So I think it's important for us to look into all those reports and at least have a a coherent set of bullet points about what was said and what the council is saying now, that it's not going to be a problem. I also said that Kemp Mill was very concerned about it, about the University Boulevard plan, and she said, Kemp Mill, we took care of Kemp Mill because we took out the shopping center. So, and that they were concerned only about traffic. Well, I am going to check with the Kemp Mill people, but I don't believe that traffic was their only concern. I think that affordability was also a concern. So this is what we're getting. We're getting a massive change and disinformation about what actually will happen with that massive change.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Charlotte, go ahead.
Okay, this is Charlotte from Sligo Woods. Thank you, John, for the update. And unfortunately for Sligo Woods, the zoning or the road changes that were made didn't go far enough. They're still planning to open up Orange Drive to University Boulevard, which is going to bring University Boulevard traffic directly into our little neighborhood. I don't know how these things go. I know they have to go. I know that the plan now goes to the Maryland National Parks and Planning Commission for approval, and then the sectional map amendment process will start. And then it goes back to the council for a hearing on the sectional map amendments. I don't have any experience in knowing whether the public hearing they're going to have at that point would be an appropriate place to bring up some of the remaining issues, or whether it's basically just whether it's worthwhile to do that. If any of you have experience with that, it'd be good to know. And I also haven't seen a copy of the revised plan. A lot of changes were made to it during the committee process, and we do have the legislation indicating what they're changing, but I haven't seen that incorporated into the final plan yet. If any of you know where to find that, I'd be happy to know.
So that's probably underway because they're not going to take this up until the summer of 2026.
Okay.
And so appropriate would be zoning. It implements the zoning changes to the sectional map. But we always just say whatever we want to say. So make the record clear. Thanks for that. I'm sorry about that road problem. We faced a lot of.
I thought that would be an easy thing for them to give us. There were so many problems we brought up, and it seemed like that would have been a low-hanging fruit for them to do something to help us out, But
and the hearing that was in the high school, I remember someone testifying how her middle school son got hit by a car walking to the school bus in the morning. So, they say they want safer, more walkable streets, and then they want to bring traffic off University Boulevard through a neighborhood. Doesn't make sense to me. So I'll give some thought to coming up with some ideas about that. I'm sorry that's happening because it's not going to be good. Eric Gabler, you're muted.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
I wanted to maybe give a slightly different perspective the way it's been described. It sounds like we just got completely trounced. And it didn't happen that way at all. Initially, the plan sought to extend Gilmore Drive from at least Lorraine Avenue all the way through to Dennis, and then beyond Dennis all the way up to Gable Street. It was an extensive, major connected street that would run parallel to University. We had all that removed. We removed there's still a bike path connection, but there is not a car connection. So Gilmore Drive is no longer going to be a continuous road. Greenock Road will not connect directly to University. Brewood Road will not be connected to Gilmore Drive. And Whitehall Street will not be connected to Gilmore Drive. So those were important concessions that were made, which unfortunately the Orange Drive did not come up, and the subjects came up often. We tried to protest, but at the hearing itself, nobody brought it up. So I'm not sure how that happened, but we did get.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Our neighborhood association specifically brought that up at the public hearings, and several individuals also testified about that.
Yes, but where they didn't come up was when we had all the discussions in September, October, and November, working with the PHP committee. It did not emerge at that point. And I thought that was odd. I even looked at the testimony to see if I missed something. We had worked very hard to get Gilmore Drive as a continuous road out. And it's one of the reasons why you will not have Gilmore Drive as a continuous drive from essentially Northwood High School all the way to the Safeway. So that's out. And Greenock Drive won't be connected. So those exclusions were an important concession. They are still listed as paved bike paths, but making it clear it's not for cars, which is good. Other things that were done was we got this special study to turn the Four Corners intersection into a grid system removed. It was a major study that was almost preordained to conclude that Gilmore Drive should be extended to Route 29 and beyond. That study is out. We've got the study removed from the capital improvement plan proposal and the table at the back of the document. Other things that were done were we protected Woodmore Shopping Center. It's no longer going to be rezoned to a mixed use site 100 feet tall. It's now not rezoned at all. It's still going to keep its existing zoning. We got the heights of the buildings at Four Corners lowered from 100 feet down to 65 or 70 feet. The Safeway will only be 65 feet. And we got the density removed from 3.0 down to 2.25, which makes it much less attractive for anybody to redevelop the properties. Other things that were done was we got, instead of full block development along University Boulevard, the whole length, it's only buildings facing University Boulevard, not the buildings behind them. And we got the height reduced from 50 feet to 45 feet. So instead of having full blocks, which was the original plan, including major redevelopment at the Dennis University intersection, it's now just university facing buildings. And so that was a major reduction in density. So instead of 570 properties being redeveloped, it's only 170 now, potentially being redeveloped and at lesser heights. And so these weren't really small victories. They were actually pretty important. They've also agreed to make studies about displacement of residents. They have to now define that and report on it so that they can't just quietly displace people. They'll have to show a report on the, if anybody of lower income is displaced. And we got very strong support from Kristen Mink and Will Joando, and John already described that. But what I'm saying is it wasn't a complete blowout. I regret Orange Drive, and somehow in the discussions in September, October, and November, and that's when the changes were made. No changes were successfully imposed prior to that on the planning board. Planning board just refused to hear it.
This is just my ignorance, Eric. Who is the "we" you're referring to? Is it Four Corners? Is it?
Oh, credit to this really goes to Kemp Mill. Kemp Mill's incredible show of resistance completely unnerved the planning board and many of the commissioners. And if they had not so destabilized the push to just impose the plan, I don't think we would have had the luck that we did, because what happened was when that happened, when Kemp Mill got removed and the solid front of the planning board was disrupted, then we were able to come along with compelling arguments for how the traffic coming into our neighborhood would just be devastating. You know, we talked about turning Gilmore into a parallel route along University and how destructive that would be, and connecting Greenock Road, which is not suitable for high volume traffic.
Mhm.
And MCCF, as John is pointing out, was incredibly important in this. It's one of the reasons I joined MCCF. Its presence and its protesting, its organization was very, very important. It was second to Kemp Mill. It was the most prominent support that the neighborhoods had. And as I say, after that, I said, I've got to join this organization because it's definitely the way to go. We need to put together some documents on how to get to, when you look at a sector plan or a quarter plan, ways you can figure out what they're actually doing, because most of this, such as the extension of Dennis, was carefully hidden. Not Dennis, the extension of Gilmore Drive was not well called out in the original document. And they made a lot of changes to the public University Boulevard Corridor Plan, the public display version. They made a lot of copies after the public comment period closed. That's when they raised the heights of buildings. And that's when they became explicit that this was going to be an extension for cars on Gilmore Drive. And so there's lots of things we can learn from this that we can write them up. Other neighborhoods and quarter groups can, I think, more successfully resist.
That's great. I have another quick question, which is based on everyone's experience with Orange Drive. What would be a process improvement for us going forward to make sure that issues don't get dropped inadvertently?
I think where that would be useful is our different neighborhood civic associations were probably not as coordinated together as they could have been. I think at the Four Corners area, where we were worried that we were going to be turned into an urban grid, there was a lot of communication, say, between North Four Corners and Woodmore and South Four Corners. A little bit less so, I think, with Sligo Woods. I don't know where the Orange Drive thing fell through. In hindsight, I think we probably could have blocked that. But there was just, things were happening so quickly at the very end, particularly in October, when Friedson, in particular, Council Member Friedson, realized that there were some offensive things in that plan, you know, that were going to really rip through our neighborhoods. And as I say, Gilmore Drive would have just been a thoroughfare, an alternative route to University, particularly if they start reducing lanes on University. All the traffic was going to come down Gilmore. And you know they'll put in a roundabout at Dennis and stuff if they could have, to facilitate traffic movement down the road. So I think they had really strong plans. And as I say, they wanted to develop whole blocks. So you'd have blocks facing Gilmore Drive that would have been, you know, multi-family housing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was really much more that was gained in this. And again, the Montgomery County Civic Federation was very important. And Mark Elrich was incredibly important. And again, I give a tremendous amount of credit to Kemp Mill, which was one of the most impressive displays of coordinated resistance by a neighborhood group I've ever seen. So there was a lot of really good work done by MCCF, Mark Elridge, Kemp Mill, and I think our neighborhood associations were able to take advantage of that and get some of the more critical concerns to us done too. So I don't think we just got completely rolled on this. There are things I wish, of course, they had not done this, but we didn't lose everything. We didn't have our, this urban town grid imposed across their neighborhoods. So I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Yeah, I know. That's great, Eric. We have to remember, those are all good lessons for future plans, and it's good to remember the successes that we do have. Bruce, do you want to go ahead quickly? We just have, I think, 5 or 6 more minutes to spend on this.
Uh, for those who don't know me, my name is Bruce Schulman, and I'm a member of the Kemp Mill Civic Association.
Wow.
I don't live right in Kemp Mill. I live right across Arcola Avenue from Kemp Mill, and I've been there for over 40 years. Anyone who states that Kemp Mill was only concerned with traffic is either telling a falsehood, hasn't read the comments, or just doesn't know anything. I was the person who perhaps spoke the loudest about people being displaced. Most of the housing along University Boulevard, not all, but the overwhelming amount is less than the median cost of a house in Montgomery County, which is $650,000. I raised this issue to both Mr. Friedson and Mr. Glass, and both of them had the same answer, which is no one's going to be forced to move. It's going to be a voluntary decision. I told them that as a young boy, I had witnessed 3 major displacements in Washington, D.C. that were similar to what will happen along University Boulevard. I told them that as soon as property is upzoned, it becomes more valuable. When it becomes more valuable, people's taxes go up. And when taxes go up, people can afford to stay in their current property less than they could before the rezoning occurred. They don't buy any of it. They want to wash their hands of any possibility that there will be a displacement caused by increased property values. I think that is ducking your head into the sand. With respect to traffic, we in Kemp Mill are not through with fighting traffic. I can tell you that I will be advocating, possibly before the state, that dash cam footage from individual cameras be able to be used to ferret out the small number of people who are causing major accidents. I had 2 incidents last year which speed cameras would not help with which nothing would help with, but for the presence of a police officer. And as we know, police officers can't be around everywhere. So that's something that I am going to raise with my state senator and see if something can be done. In any event.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, Bruce. Linda, go ahead. Linda, what happened to Linda?
Here I am. Just for other folks, under questioning by mostly Jawanda at the council meetings on the UBC, it was clear that the data effort that they undertook to get input from residents was really, really bad and biased. And they still relied on it. And Jawanda was the only one who put their feet to the fire regarding that. I see Eric shaking his hand. Yeah, it was really bad. The other thing is Eric, didn't he get something in there related to workforce housing? I think he
Yes.
did. Yeah, he did get something in there, workforce housing, but Kim from Epic, is still, I mean, they're still not happy about what's going to happen with the placement with Black and Latinx residents. So
Right.
just keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Paula, last comment on this.
Thanks. I just have three things. I wanted to also point out Kim Purceau and her amazing work in organizing with Epic. I just was curious. I've been a little bit involved with this. How did this UBC plan bubble up in the first place? Where did it come from? Because the people I talked to, no one seems to want this to have happened in the first place. So it's, it's worth trying to figure out where this even came from. Secondly, the last thing I want to say is the planning department staff have meetings all the time in their offices with developers and, other players. And those meetings, if you know about them, they're public. You can go to those meetings. You do not have to wait for public hearings. You do not have to wait for any kind of public meetings. You can go and ask for, the developers and say you want to be at those private meetings that planning department staff have with developers. And you can, you should be there. Thank you.
I have a question about that. How do you find out about those meetings?
How do you find out about them?
Mm-hmm.
You just have to keep on them and call. I suppose you can, if you find someone in the planning department. I used to work as a consultant for different planning departments. So I saw, not in a nefarious way, but, developers go in there, present their preliminary plans. The staff will say, we don't like this, change this. You can be at those meetings. So maybe something to do is speak with planning department staff and find out, who they're going to be meeting with.
Okay.
Look at logs. They keep logs. People, when people sign in for those meetings, you can look at the logs. Those are public information.
Okay, thanks, Paula. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you, Cheryl. I just wanted to circle back to what Eric said and just acknowledge that we made a lot of progress during this whole journey about the University Boulevard corridor plan. That could have been much, much worse. But there was a lot of coordination among neighborhood groups at Civic Fed, and we had champions with Jawando and Mink and ultimately Sid Katz. So it just is, it's a good template for working on these projects in the future. But Eric is right. It could have been much worse. And the community downsized the project. They had wanted to, the planning board wanted to have a really enormous project in the Four Corners area, and I think we pushed it back. So I just wanted to say thank you, Eric, for making those points, and we did a good job, and I was very proud of everybody who weighed in on that.
Jaska.
Thank you. Maybe the video is going to work. No, it's not working. Okay. This information, the suggestion from Paula is very interesting. And this could be something that if we wanted to just go and sit and monitor, we could get organized in a way to do this. There are enough of us that maybe we could each volunteer to sit in at one meeting, for example, and just sit there and observe. Our presence alone could potentially, throw them off course. They're gonna get a little discombobulated when they have citizens monitoring those kinds of meetings that they don't expect. So I think that that's potentially something very interesting we could do. This happens in other countries where people are fighting against corruption, and you have citizen groups that just go and observe. They don't disrupt, they go and observe, but their presence alone serves as a disruption to business as usual. So if anybody's interested in that, I'd be really interested to talk about that and see if we could pull together volunteers to each try to get to one meeting. Thank you.
Okay, another thing I think, Paula, right, they could reach out to the planners in charge of this area and just say they'd like to be notified and be present at meetings that they hold with developers from this point forward. Maybe that would work as well.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay, we have to move on. We have a lot tonight. I would call on Alan Bowser now to give a short report, Alan, on our upcoming effort to achieve funding for the Office of the People's Counsel.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. Let me share my screen. I did have a screen here that talks about the People's Counsel, and I can find it here. I'd ask everybody to do their, can you see that? Can you see that Bethesda magazine article?
No.
No,
No.
not yet.
All right, well, then that didn't get shared yet. So I'm gonna ask everybody to share my screen. And how about that? Should be able to see it now, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, now you see the,
You moved on. You got to go back one.
now here you go. See about that. How about that?
There it is. Yep, that's
All
it.
right. So in 2019, Liz Joyce and I wrote an article that was published in Bethesda magazine about why Montgomery County needs the Office of the People's Counsel. So I'd ask everybody to do some homework. It's really easy. Just Google the People's Counsel, and then you can see the articles that people in the community have written about this important subject. It's been of concern to the Civic Fed for a long time, has a little bit of history. The Office of the People's Counsel was Ike Leggett initiative. It was established in 1990 when Ike was on the county council. It was funded in 1999, according to what I'm looking at on my screen, which is also from a Google search, and operated from 2000 to 2010. And it was defunded in the time of the Great Recession of 2000, 2009, 2010. And for the last several years, the county executive, Elrich, has been putting this into the operating budget proposal that he presents to the county council for just about $250,000, and it hasn't gone forward. There's been a really inadequate discussion in what used to be the Fed committee, now the PHP committee, and it's never come to the county council for a full and fulsome discussion about refunding the Office of the People's Counsel. So Liz and I wrote this article, which you can see, I believe it was in May of 2019. You can just Google why Montgomery County needs the Office of the People's Counsel. You can see the article and read our arguments, and you can see what some other people have written in the Washington Post and things like that. So what I did was I asked one of our AI assistants, I think this was Google Gemini, to do a quick summary of the article that Liz and I wrote in 2019. Here you can see after the title, this is the website for Bethesda Magazine, May 19, 2023. And going down here, we could, if I could expand this so it makes it a little bit easier for you to read. How about that? We talk about the historical context and the current vacuum, and that the Office of the People's Counsel lost its funding in 2019 as a temporary measure and has not been refunded since. This is an office where, as proposed by Ike Leggett in the 1990s, would provide support to communities throughout Montgomery County to learn about land use and planning decisions. There are 5 or 6 other Office of the People's Counsel that are in existence and operating throughout the state of Maryland. There's a Maryland Office of the People's Counsel. This is not that. The Maryland Office of the People's Counsel is for utility issues for the most part. And this was a pretty active program throughout the early 2000s. In this article, we argued that that with the new general plan, Thrive 2050, with all the land use implications from that plan, there was going to be a lot of confusion at the community and neighborhood level, and that there were going to be more frequent and intense land use disputes, and that the Office of the People's Counsel would provide an urgent need because with all the introduction of the new concepts of urbanism and zoning tools, it would be helpful for neighborhoods that don't have the resources to get some support and have public meetings to explain what's going on as these sectional map amendments come down, these quarter plans come down. It'd be a very useful resource for communities. One of the questions was how would the Office of the People's Counsel support social justice and racial equity issues? OLL did a report, basically found that proposals that had recently come to the fore from Andrew Friedson, basically, with the support of Manny Fanny Gonzalez, for sort of an information office and not an office that had staff and that was really proactive in sort of reaching out to the community, that the plan that they were suggesting disadvantaged communities of color and low-income residents. You can also do a Google search for the OLL report on the Office of the People's Counsel. There's a 2008 report that the Office of Legislative Oversight did on the Office of People's Counsel, which was very critical of the existing program in the early 2000s. Really had more to do with the person who was directing that office. There were some very supportive comments from the community, but they used the 2008 report to basically defund it and not to refund it when the economy got better. More recently, the county's Office of Racial Equity and Social, I guess OLL did a racial equity and social justice study of the Friedson plan for this information office, and they thought that his plan would disproportionately exclude minority communities and low income. It would disadvantage people of color and low income residents. The OPC is not described as a legal office, but as a tool for social justice that ensures vulnerable communities have a seat at the table when developments are proposed in their neighborhood. People have been opposed to. There's a large part of the development community and its constituency on the county council, which doesn't like the Office of the People's Counsel and say that it's anti-growth. I think some of the work that we've done over the course of the last couple of years shows that there's not a single instance throughout the state where the Office of the People's Counsel in counties like Prince George's County, Baltimore County, I think Baltimore City, maybe Howard County. There's another one where the work of the Office of the People's Counsel really stopped development or any kind of projects having to do with housing. The Friedson bill was called was Bill 1823, the Resource Office, and the people who did the racial equity and social justice study, they strongly criticized it and said that it was that their substitute would not have the independence of a People's Counsel. It would be barred from identifying conflicts with master plans. It would essentially be a referral service rather than a legal advocate capable cross-examining experts or presenting evidence. And finally, in our article, what Liz and I wrote was for Montgomery County to maintain the integrity of its planning progress, it must treat the OPC as an essential government check and balance, similar to the Inspector General or the Office of Consumer Protection. They call on the County Counsel to prioritize due process for all by funding a robust, independent Office of the People's Counsel. So you can find this article, read it in full by Googling Bethesda Beat People's Counsel. It'll pop up. The county executive has told us that he is going to include a proposal for refunding, restarting the Office of the People's Counsel in its FY27 operating budget. Last year, in the FY26 operating budget, he proposed to fund the Office of the People's Counsel at $261,783. So just a small fraction of the $7 billion total operating budget, noting that this would be its first funding since 2010. This funding for 261,783 included a People's Counsel, the person, and an administrative specialist. So, two FTEs to run this office and provide outreach to communities throughout the county. I hope that we see as much advocacy for the Office of the People's Counsel and its refunding as we did for the a reasonable corridor plan on University Boulevard, and the kind of outreach and advocacy that we did to push back on the attainable housing, on Thrive 2050, the attainable housing study, and the More Housing Now. So that's my brief report, Cheryl, for you.
Great,
on.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. I really appreciate that. I just want to add a couple of little notes. 2 years ago, we found out that our partner in MNCPPC is Prince George's County, and they have a People's Counsel that's written into state statute, and the state gives them the money for it every year. And so we tried an alternate route, and Senator Kramer introduced a bill and made the case that both counties are under a state agency, MNCPPC, and they both should have the same thing. And so it would have required Montgomery County to hire someone and get that office running, but also what the state was going to give Montgomery County the money for it, the way it does for PG County. And the council launched a big opposition campaign to it. Friedson went up and testified against it. We had some of our state delegates actually take the time to go testify against it, saying a lot of very just completely false things, like we can't have a People's Counsel because we need affordable housing. And People's Counsel don't make any decisions. The decision makers stay the same. So a lot of specious arguments like that. The measure was really killed by Julie Polakovich-Carr and Lily Chi. And what Lily did was something, not Lily, Julie Polakovich-Carr did something really was a little bit cynical. She basically put forward a so-called compromise to help people in Montgomery County, and it was Friedson's clearinghouse bill. And then during the hearing, different delegates are asking questions like, what other, People's Counsel in this state is that comparable to? And I think it was Lily Chi said, oh, Baltimore County, which is ridiculous. Baltimore County has the strongest People's Counsel law in this state. Their People's Counsel can go into court and seek injunctions. It's like a model People's Counsel. So there's just a lot of misstatements of facts made, and a big opposition campaign. And so we lost that as well. So that's what happened at the state level. So we've tried a couple of different avenues. Now we're going back to the county budget and see what happens this year. We will send out to people basic talking points and the schedule for the budget consideration, so that we can start lobbying for funding the People's Counsel again. I see some hands up. Douglas Taylor, go ahead.
Hi, yes, I've lived in Montgomery County now for about 10 years, and so I haven't experienced the action of the People's Counsel in Montgomery County. And I read the articles and the statutory information with interest, but I'm wondering if anyone has an example of where the People's Counsel was effective and did something that would otherwise not have happened. I don't understand the process well enough, I don't think, to see how that occurred.
Some of it's in the OLO report. Some of it, they reported that there were even some developers that liked the People's Counsel because they were coaching residents on what was really relevant and not, and saving time by shifting out of the discussion things that residents had in mind that weren't really relevant. The Development Review Committee that we had 3 or so years ago, one of the county executive agency heads made a statement during it that the reason why the People's Counsel wasn't funded was really just simply political. He said something about a project that the council didn't like, said it publicly. And I don't know what that is. He's retired and moved. But I think I don't know that anyone here can name a specific project tonight anyway, but that's something we could look into.
There's a lot about process, but it would be nice to have someone say, well, we wanted, the county wanted to do this, and we enlisted the People's
Yeah.
Counsel,
Yeah.
and we ended up with that. That would
Right.
be
Yeah, that would be good. I
very
guess
illuminating.
we can
All
search
right,
that.
that's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
So let me
Abby, go
just
ahead.
let me just comment on that, because while you were talking, I was able to just quickly, Google OPC and Montgomery County land use decisions, and there's some information there that you find useful. So there are some examples along with case numbers, non-resident medical practitioner's office, special exception and conditional use cases, local map amendments, zoning text amendments, status of the office, things like that. So I'd commend the internet search to you about that.
All right, thanks. Abby?
Hi, thank you for doing this. I just want to make this as concise as I can. I support the concept of the Office of the People's Counsel, but I do want everybody to hear my cautionary tale. Having intervened at the Public Service Commission in PEPCO's rate cases and come up against the Office of the People's Counsel that dealt with utilities, I can tell you that there is a little bit of concern, because one of the things that I noted had happened, at least at the Office of the People's Counsel, was that they became very pro-utility in the course of their advocacy. And this is a true advocacy organization. They are all attorneys. They all have the rights of cross-examination and full legal ability to present information before the Public Service Commission, which is a quasi-judicial body. They objected terrifically to having anyone else come into these rate cases. And what I found was the notion of regulatory capture was very prevalent within the Office of the People's Counsel, meaning not only were they really not advocating for the people, but they really were there to support the utility companies. So just a cautionary tale as we wade into this, that if we do go in that direction, maybe ensure somehow that this organization doesn't become just another developer manned entity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot depends on who's in the seat, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Liz, quickly.
Dan has an example, I think.
Okay.
So, as explained in my testimony to the legislators when this came up, the Office of People's Counsel would have prevented the very expensive farm drive mess, which costs the county agencies a great deal of money, and basically caused a lot of grief to us Black community that was basically wiped out when that road was eliminated because some developer wanted to put a fancy house in its place. And as a result, those people lost their addresses and their property was devalued. If the People's Council was around, they would have been advised, that this was in the works because ordinary people who are going about their normal life are not following all these things. The developers and their lawyers, they practically live at the park and planning plan and just wear them out until they get their way. I too experienced something similar when suddenly I woke up to the smell of human bodies being burned next door in my attic. And I had to spend $250,000 in legal fees, to get that corrected. That's featured in the Washington Post article titled "Dealing with the Neighborhood Nuisance" or something like that. But yeah, I've seen it work in park and planning. Those professionals who are well paid, they just wear out the staff until the staff finally says, "Okay, you can do it." And so that's why we need to level the playing field with the Office of People Counsel, who is there and can warn citizens that these things are coming about.
So negative examples, right, where the People's Council would have helped, you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know how to post it, but my testimony when that came up, gives a very clear example. Once that found its way into the system, certain legislators then supported it because they understood why that's important. But ordinary people, I mean, I was going about my business. All of a sudden, this horrible thing happened. And, well, I had to hire expensive lawyers to, straighten it out. It was just awful to see park and planning and just rubber stamp it through. That's why I tend to call them park and unplanning.
Okay. I see that Liz posted an article in the Post from the former People's Council. So maybe there's something in there that Douglas Taylor you want to read. So we have got to move on. We have a little bit of time left to start our discussion, and this is only a start of the governor's housing proposals. The first thing I want to say is that there are three separate bills. And Liz, can you mute yourself? There are three separate bills. The one that, and that the housing proposals were moved out of Mark Corman's committee and to the Economic Matters Committee. And if Lily Chi is still the chair of that, then that is the worst possible news for us.
She's not the chair, but she remains on the committee.
Oh, she's not the chair? Okay, great.
No, but the chair is from Prince George's County.
Okay.
And the vice chair is from Tacoma Park.
Right, Lorig. Lorig is the vice chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are three bills. The one that seems to have generated the most concern is the Starter and Silver Homes Act, which is meant to change the regulatory structure in localities around the state to promote or provide opportunities for building smaller starter homes or downsizing homes. That's the silver is seniors. The bill, and I've been reading that and talking to people. I will tell you, I don't know everything about these bills, but we have a situation on our hands right now. The Starter and Silver Homes bill basically redefines townhouses as single-family homes, so that anywhere in the county that it is zoned for single-family homes is eligible by right to build townhouses on the property. And then it prohibits local governments from establishing any rules that would mandate minimum lot sizes bigger than 5,000 feet anywhere. It creates by right a provision anywhere that you can subdivide your lot up to 3 separate lots. And localities may not establish minimum square foot or the exterior dimensions of buildings. Localities may not mandate lot coverage maximums for single-family homes or accessory structures. It changes minimum setbacks to be 10 feet in front and back and 5 feet on the sides, quite a bit different from our setbacks. And localities may not implement architectural or design standards. There does seem to be a conflict. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, if it's a conflict, I'm just not reading it correctly, but there's one part of the bill that seems to says that localities can dictate lot coverage and another part that says they can't. And there are a number of exemptions to who's covered, includes historic districts. So there are probably many areas of the county that are exempt from this, like Kensington has a historic district, Tacoma Park, which also has a red line metro station, which is a big transportation asset, but it's going to end up, the area around the metro is the historic district, will end up being exempt. I think Chevy Chase Village is a historic region. I'm pretty sure that Rockville and Gaithersburg have historic sections. So there are some exemptions. Politically, what I've been told is that governor's bills always pass. That last year was the first time anyone can remember in 25 years that a governor's bill didn't pass. And the goal is to amend it, to make it just as good as you can get it, because the bill with the title and the bill number will pass. So next week, we're going to hear from Mark Corman, who's going to talk a little bit about the process and his thoughts on it, I guess. And I'm hoping that Michelle Rosenfeld will come and brief us. More specifically, I have questions that I can't give answers to tonight, like our growth and infrastructure policy, where, theoretically anyway, infrastructure is supposed to keep pace with growth. I'm not sure because these are by right developments. So if a developer gets 5 lots and because the setbacks and the size rules, you could get a string of 15 or 25 townhouses. So you can get a lot of townhouses, and it doesn't look to me like, I'm not sure how the county would be able to enforce its growth and infrastructure policy, for example. We also do theoretically have a compatibility standard in planning and it's also one of the appeal rights you have, like when you go to a hearing examiner, you want to appeal. It looks to me like things like architectural design, size, et cetera, that would come up in a compatibility discussion would no longer be allowable reasons to reject a planning board, a proposal. So that is what I have figured out so far. I know other people are reading these bills and may have things that they want to add to it. So I'm just going to call on some people and see if you have things to add. But this is going to be an ongoing conversation that we're going to have reading the bills and, getting analyses of and get our arms around and hoping that someone in the legislature will do a section by section summary. The bill is really hard to read. It's oddly written. You read for a while definitions, then all of a sudden you realize you're not reading definitions anymore. You're actually reading bill text. I have to go back and start over. There's when they bold things and when they don't is strange and odd. Anyway, it's very hard to read. So that's why I say I just want to caution everyone. This is something we're going to have to take some time with. But politically, it's a big, hill to climb. The Maryland Association of Counties is involved in the process, and part of what their goal, one of their main goals is if you look on the website, it says maintaining the autonomy of their counties. in terms of governance of their own counties. So it does seem to me that there's some overreach, but everything is coming into this, including presidential politics. Westmore wants to run for president, and Gavin Newsom is California. They've done huge things with housing, so I guess needs to get in on that. So there's just a lot here, and it's going to be a very big hill to climb for us. So I'm going to call on Sherry first.
Thanks, Cheryl, and thank you for reading it. And Cheryl knows that I've had several conversations with Mark Corman. His committee no longer, just for people who follow this more closely, he no longer has jurisdiction of all housing. He has jurisdiction related to housing, related to transit, because his committee does issues related to transportation. Last year, we were very successful at working with him with the bill, in part because he was the chairman of the committee with jurisdiction. So we're going to have to also manage, as we work on this, finding a whole bunch of new friends who are around to help us with the politics. I think that ultimately the governor wants a bill to show with his name on it that's going to be transformative in housing. I think that the same developers who are a problem for us in the county are going to be a problem for us at the state level, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a giveaway. And finally, it's a huge preemption of the rights of county government. And I think that we may want to align ourselves thinking ahead, certainly with Mark Elrich, with other people, get to know the people, the Maryland Association of Counties. They will have a broader range of power in terms of local government. Also, it seems like a laundry list bill. There are 3 bills total, and Cheryl, you might want to comment on it. But it seems like it's a laundry list bill, and that means there are opportunities for us to work on trying to take things out of it. But I think it's fair to say he's going to get something passed. And lastly, let me ask Abby's question, who is in the chat, which is about fiscal note, because fiscal note will help us understand better the intention of the bill and its costs, and might give us some ways to weigh in about costs. That's my thoughts and my question. You're muted. Cheryl, you're muted.
Sorry, it does seem a little premature to get a fiscal note, but as soon as we find it, we should definitely be watching and circulate it. There are 2 other bills. One has to do with promoting transit-oriented development on public property, around transit stations, and within half a mile, I think, of transit stations, but it's on public property. I think that we have that policy already here in Montgomery County. The other bill is a vesting. The last time the bill was up, they had this odd story that involved one developer, they, meaning Jake Day, the housing chair and the governor, that some developer in PG County got pulled permits and was getting ready to start building something when the county changed the rules and made them so that they had to stop building and get all new plans and start over. It doesn't even sound true to me, to be honest, but they have this one story, and they say developers want vesting rights. And so it gives vesting rights. So whatever the rules were when you got your plans approved, you can go ahead and build. I've been told, and I haven't seen it yet, that the vesting rights this year have a time limit on them where they didn't last time. So that will be a key factor. And if it's a reasonable amount of time, then somebody gets approved, and they have to go get financing, and they have to line up their construction crews and get their stuff. So it takes a little bit of time. So it's reasonable to give people some time to get started without, telling them that the rules have changed. I wanted to think through and talk to Michelle Rosenfeld about whether or not, in terms of vesting, that we want to put some protection in there that if you're going to claim vesting rights, the whole plan has to go forward, not just building the building. Because, we frequently have problems like Chevy Chase Lake, where they have a plan and then they drop out, the undergrounding, the wires, they drop out the trees, they drop out paying for the bike path and somebody else has to pay for it. And so the public's amenities, those beautiful renderings that they show you in color that look like watercolor paintings of trees and bike lanes that have curbs. And if you see the UBC ones, you know, the bike lanes have curbs on both sides and trees on both sides. I haven't seen bike lanes like that in the county really anywhere. But a lot of times you lose some of the elements of the plan, parks, green space. So that's my only thought about vesting. And if anyone knows if they've seen the vesting in this bill and what the time limit is, would you
5 years.
5 years? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, then we're probably going to be okay with that. Karen Bolte, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. So I've been thinking about the Starter and Silver Homes Act. I actually think that we have to strongly oppose it because it's basically the Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative for the entire state. And it doesn't, you know, it's all the arguments that we made against the Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative, that one size fits all does not work. It doesn't take into consideration the the individual communities, throughout now the state. And, I think with regard to our local, I'm in District 16 with our local representatives. I think watching the Bethesda meeting on the Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative, making them well aware of the opposition to that plan and all the reasons that people opposed it, because it doesn't address concerns about infrastructure, it doesn't address school overcrowding, it doesn't address concerns about the environment. And, they're trying to attract economic development to the county. I cannot think of they're trying to attract people, and they're saying that nowhere in Maryland will there be single family neighborhoods, because you can have by right development and it can happen at any time after you've already bought your house. And I think, the people in Potomac that got exempted from the attainable house, like, get the big homeowners who have huge lots, get them involved to be complaining about it and saying, we don't want our truly mansion homes next to townhouses, might be very helpful. But I mean, I don't know that this is a done deal. I think if they could get their other two bills, and like you said, we already have transit-oriented development in Montgomery County. That's already passed. So we already have that, of course, with the huge, giveaways to developers. They're not, paying any taxes on all the buildings that are going up on the metro station. So that's really not as much of an issue for us because it's already happened in Montgomery County. I don't really know enough about the vesting bill to, at least right now, have an opinion about it. But I mean, I saw this and was really, really worried about it. And of course, it's lovely talking points, but what it actually does is much more than the talking points, and I think it has a lot of harm. So that's my opinion about it, and I don't, know what others feel as strongly opposed to it.
Yeah. So next week with Mark Corman here, we'll have a chance to talk to him about how to play it and approach it, whether it's just oppose it or to suggest a whole lot of amendments. I can just tell you what Jeff Waldstreicher told me. He said the governor's bills always pass, and it really doesn't matter if you strip every line out of it and put houses are nice in there, as long as the bill number and the title and his name is on whatever passes. So it's obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, but I mean, I think we have to really do more than, just oppose it. We have to start coming up with very specific changes or things to offer instead. But But I do think the good thing about having Mark Corman come next week, and maybe I can think about, other meetings where we might invite people as well, and find out, the best play to make. Shaska, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. It's good that you're going to get exposed to Mark Corman about these issues next week. Some of us already were at a meeting last week, and he basically said, no matter what, it's going to get passed. And for those who were there, correct me if I'm wrong. He basically said, what you need to do now is give strong, very strong alternatives to, change this, to play around with it, so it's not so expansive and far-reaching. He agreed it was too expansive and too far-reaching. So he already knows that. So, but he said it's going to pass. He said something is going to pass. So the one thing I would also want us to think about is that this is going to be what we have to our advantage now, is that we are facing elections. Now, regardless of Westmore's term is not over yet, this is going to scare them if they understand that there will be political consequences. And they have to understand that there will be political consequences to something like this. And what people at the meeting last week said is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And what is the data? And then if we identify the problem and the data, what's the quantity of what we're trying to solve? And that is literally affordable housing. So we have to zero in our arguments on what needs to be done to address that specific problem. And I think that I don't know how, since I'm new to the Federation, I don't want to make inappropriate suggestions, but I don't know how Westmore needs to hear from citizens and civic groups, but they need to hear, he and his people need to hear that there are going to be consequences if something so far reaching is passed. And so I guess, the more we can try to meet with people, including in Annapolis, I think the stronger we will be. Thanks.
Liz Joyce.
Yes, I just put in the chat a quote from the governor, which shows to me that he has completely adopted the dominant narrative about zoning being the culprit. And more scholarship is pointing out that it is not the single culprit or even the main culprit. For example, the Great Recession of 2008-9 caused massive changes in the housing market and caused the entry of private investment firms into the housing market, buying up homes and renting them out rather than allowing, regular homeowners to buy them. So it's easier for these investors to do this rather than fund mortgages. So that kind of massive factor, which has been crucial to this entire development, particularly in the last 20 years, is out of the perspective of the planners who push these plans. Now, this is pretty complicated, but it is the truth. And so many of these people who espouse these views don't understand the nuances. And I'm afraid that I look at the last line. That's why on January 14th, our administration will continue to implement the most aggressive housing policies this state has seen in a generation, and we will do it unapologetically. So I think this is what we're dealing with, and we just need to be aware of that.
Brenda, go ahead.
Well, I think another part of this development frenzy that needs to be addressed is how much property can these entities buy at one time? That is certainly a factor. Because if they can buy as much as their wealth permits, people will have no control. And I think this is a driving factor, and it is not talked about. How much property can be developed and by whom? That is a question I would like to get some answers on, if there's any answers available.
Yeah.
So let me just
So
say,
like,
that the President of the United States has proposed a new housing policy which would limit large equity funds buying up single family houses, whether or not it goes through or not. But that's sort of breaking news.
Wait, I have to respond to this. This is hardly, if we're talking about the President of the United States, the developer in chief, this is hardly a credible, I don't know, comment. Okay, let me out of here.
So, to get 3 townhouses on a lot, they'd have to buy, well, actually, that's not true. Apparently, I think the 5,000 square feet and being able to divide by 3 by right gives you the footprint for 3 townhouses. And so I think it was B. Cope pointed out to me today, if the 15,000 square foot lot or 25,000 square foot lot that's on Connecticut Avenue were bought, you could have 5,000 lots with 3 townhouses. So you could get 15 townhouses on that lot on Connecticut Avenue. The smaller lots in the county are not going to support 3 townhouses. That is how it's defined in the Silver and Starter homes, is a group of a minimum of 3, where each of the 3 shares at least one wall with another home. Okay, Karen, your hand's up again.
Yeah, I was going to say with regard to the institutional investor issue, I wonder if we could get them. I think there's been some other jurisdictions, and I unfortunately don't know where they have successfully passed legislation saying that there's a waiting period of, I think, 2 months before institutional investors can purchase homes. So at least that's giving people the opportunity to actually buy a home before developers come in, swoop in, and buy up all the properties. So I don't know if that's something that we as a civic federation would want to consider, that they propose that, and like to give them not only alternative language in the Silver and Starter homes bill, but also say, okay, if you're really going to pass some of his, the other 2 bills, maybe this is something, and then that really is very people friendly. Of course, the developers would go nuts, but I'm just throwing it out there as something to maybe think about.
Yeah, so the white paper that we did on housing that's on our website, that's has a provision in there where we call for limiting the rights of investors to buy homes. So that's something that we can easily put forward as an approved policy. Some of the other questions I have is, how it fits in with some of our other existing policies, like the corridor plans, for example, for 3 townhouses requires one of them to be workforce housing. I'm not sure they can, if you're allowed to just build it by right, irrespective of it. I don't know. I would like to know what happens to those rules. Okay, Jerry Garson, your hand's up.
One of the major problems with townhouses in Montgomery County, they started building townhouses along Matthew Henson Parkway, which is just south of Montrose Road. They can't sell all the townhouses at $1 million a piece. Basically, with the high cost of construction of townhouses and Of course, they build them non-fireproof, so any fire will spread to all the buildings that are attached to each other. This is not affordable housing at $1 million a house in Montgomery County. Maybe in some of the other outlying counties like Wycomico County or Worcester County, you could build cheaper houses because the land prices are cheap. But the land prices in Montgomery County basically say you cannot build anything affordable in basically about 95% of the county, which housing is allowed. I'm not including Rockville and Gaithersburg, that are separate cities. But there's basically no land available other than up in the Clarksburg area. And even in Clarksburg, they're having trouble selling the townhouses. I mean, they get this idea we can build townhouses all over the place. You got to have a demand. And the price of construction right now, which is going extremely high, you can't build townhouses for less than $1 million a unit. I don't understand what they're even talking about. And this is what we have to point out to the legislature. And if anything, we want to put some fireproofing rules in. All these townhouses are basically built with wood. So as soon as you get a fire in one, it extends to all the other houses in the group. And I think the best way to block this is actually through a fire code and require that these connected townhouses have, a cinder block between them, not just continuously wood.
Okay, all right, thank you for that, Quentin. Go ahead. You're muted.
Okay, am I on?
You're on.
Okay, I believe Byerly or something. I didn't quite get her name.
Jaska,
I would like to just second her opinions. I think we've had a meeting and we've discussed a lot of things and we've done all sorts of things, but we haven't made any decisions. We're not going to do anything. We haven't decided to do anything. By the time we decide to do something, the time is going to be past, and we got to pick up some of these issues and do something. And I mean, if we don't have a People's Council, we should fund a People's Council. I mean, we have 1 million people in Montgomery County. $1 a piece is $1 million. Certainly, I know that in the Notley project, they've spent over $30,000. If they had a People's Council to go to, they could have spent a lot less. And I'm sure a lot of civic associations can come up with $30,000. If they can come up with $30,000 to fight one project, they can come up with some money to support a People's Council. And it may not be as powerful, but we can hire good people. I'll just tell you, this is a football example, but Indiana had nothing for a football team. They never have had one for decades. And all of a sudden, a certain individual tossed in a good portion of $40 million, and they're number one. We got to put some money together to be number one in the county for as far as influence. And we don't have it right now. And I think that's a good place to start. But all these things we're talking about them, but we're not doing anything. And I think it's nice to have Will Jawando on a ticket, but it would have been nice to get somebody better. Mike, I'm from Cloverly Civic Association. Law and order is very important to us. We're on the road to heaven and we want law and order. And so defunding the police, he's got a giant red mark against him unless he can undo that one. But I guess my point is the Civic Association has to do something, and they have to pick some issue and really go after it. And I don't know how you can raise money quickly, but the Notley project, they raised $30,000 in a couple of months. And we just have to tell people that these things are on the line, and the housing project, Governor Moore's housing project, is about the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Who's going to live in all these houses? The population is decreasing. Decreasing. What's the point?
Right.
So
Okay.
anyway, I rest my case.
Totally agree. I know that Leanne at the end is going to raise a proposal that involves raising money, but I'm going to ask Leanne to hold that for 5 minutes. We have 2 more people that want to speak. Abby, go ahead.
Just a quick thought to address Mark Corman and make suggestions. Maybe propose counter bills, countermeasures that protect housing as it is currently, single family homes, prioritizing homeowners, giving tenants right of first refusal, giving an opportunity to home buyers to bid ahead of the time of any corporate or whatever the entities are that are out there right now that are purchasing up these homes and these properties, trying to do large investments. I know California is working on companion bills to the Newsom situation to protect communities, protect housing, protect those things. So maybe we can do a quick dive into seeing what those countermeasures are in the California legislature and maybe reaching out to some of those people who propose. I know one is Senate Bill 1070. Maybe take a look at their legislation and see what they've done to utilize resources in the state to advance communities and single home ownership.
Yeah, I would like to know if their original housing bills caused problems that we could point to, and if that's why they're doing revisions. That would be interesting to know. Thanks for that, Abby. Go ahead, Paula.
Sure. I just wonder if this bill or these three bills override a lot of local government protections of neighborhoods. How does it affect the ag reserve? Does it
The ag reserve is exempt.
overturn?
The ag reserve is exempt. It's one of the exempt regions.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Leanne, you have a proposal.
Sure, thanks. I've been approached by a gentleman named Don Horowitz in Chevy Chase, Section 3, who told me that last year, one of the not certainly the only reason, not necessarily the major reason, but last year a group of residents from Chevy Chase hired a lobbyist to oppose last year's housing proposal by the governor. And he has suggested that a lobbyist be hired perhaps by Montgomery County Civic associations and neighborhood groups. So local and maybe the Civic Fed would participate for a county-wide in a county-wide coalition to do that, and that your individual civic associations at the neighborhood level would also potentially contribute. CCCFH, the 18-member land use advocacy group in Southwest Montgomery, the one that I'm in, would be interested in potentially contributing to such an effort. And if the folks here are interested, that is an avenue for opposing the bill. The lobbyist who worked for the residents of Chevy Chase last year is named Richard Tabuteau, Tabuteau, of Tabuteau LLC. And he's gotten good reviews, excellent reviews actually, concerning the folks who hired him last year. Past clients include everybody from a neighborhood organization to IBM and Volvo. And he's been a lobbyist for about 5 years, on his own for about 5 years, and did prior work for another lobbying firm in Annapolis prior to that. So he's got at least 7 years of experience, perhaps more. I'd be happy to forward his bio, his client list. His fees are $5,000 per month. And basically, in order to hire him, I'd say we would need plus or minus 2 months. So plus or minus $10,000 to go through the second, or maybe we could work out an agreement with him where, we could somehow get the cost down. I honestly don't know. But what I will say is CCCFH would be interested in contributing some money on that. My local civic association is open to the idea. The private individual who approached me would be open to putting a bit of money into it. So the question is, can we get enough of a coalition together to provide funding to raise somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in order to oppose this legislation? My comment is, I think we'll do a lot. We'll get further with a lobbyist than we will without. And it is an important issue.
Okay, I think people are gonna think about what, if anything, they can contribute or their civic can contribute and how that might happen. So we'll let people mull
Yeah.
that over.
My question will be for those civic associations who do have advocacy funds or community engagement funds to be used on things like addressing county sector plans or hiring lawyers to address zoning issues for the community. That kind of, if you have fund like that, that might be the appropriate.
Well, and I think some civics can just raise money when they need it, like Woodside, where I live,
Okay.
did a separate fundraising drive and years ago and put Michelle Rosenfeld on retainer. So that's another way you could start a fundraising drive in your community, tell them what's happening and ask.
Well, we would need to get at least 1 month's worth together relatively soon. Put it that way.
Okay. All right. Well, so then maybe we can talk about this again next week. Is that okay, Leanne?
Fine with me. Yeah.
Give people a week to think about it and think what you think you could contribute and if you were even interested in. And then we can try to hash it out next week.
Yeah, I would say the more organizations that can contribute, the less it is for each contributing organization.
Yeah. Right. Maybe some of the bigger ones could try to step
Do
up
more.
something a little bigger. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have something to add tonight? Okay, well, I hope I see you all next week. We continue this discussion because it's a big one. And thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Alan, good night.
Yeah,
You
motion
good
to
night?
adjourn.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Great
Have a
meeting.
great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you. Good
Yeah,
night.
thank you. Yep.
Night.
Good night.